mandatory.
Hi, hello, and welcome to misec in Jackson. Yay! So, a couple announcements real quick. If you haven't already, we've got some Converge tickets that are still for sale right now at the early bird price special. Also, if you're interested in presenting at Converge B-Sides, we're still got our CFP open.
Do CFP. I did one.
I might be.
Come on.
And you remember the first talk.
That's why you gotta do another one.
That's why you do more, because they get better.
We still aren't better. But we're getting there.
Soon we're going to have the volunteer page come up. We got Chris Medellina that's going to take that over this year, so he'll be your point of contact if you're interested in volunteering. I don't really have a ton of fun news coming up. You guys know of anything?
No, just Converge. Gurkhan CFP is open.
Oh yeah, Gurkhan CFP is also open. Another great place to go talk. Tomorrow will be misec Lansing. It'll be an IR talk from that guy from Jackson National Life Insurance, I believe.
Who is it?
I forgot his name.
Okay.
I should probably like write these things down so I'm sound more informed, but I'm just winging it.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I hand it off to Lucas and Beth.
All right.
I actually have the usual pun of the day taken care of too. So I've got a really good joke I heard today. I've got a good joke for all the mind readers in the room.
I love Luke. All right. So I'm Benjamin Carroll. This is Lucas Gorczyca. We both work here at, can we say consumers? Are we allowed to say that on this?
I mean, you
I already
just
said
did
it.
So
Google. We work here at Google. It's a throwback for some of you guys.
Oh, and Recon Montreal CFP is open. Sorry.
Are you talking to that? No, you should.
Talk?
Yeah. All right, so this is me and Luke. Luke and I, if none of you, some of you know, some of you don't. Luke and I have been friends for a long time. We went to college together, and we've done these presentations together a lot. We're actually winging this one tonight, but we've also done that a bunch. But we had the opportunity to go to INL 301, and that's Idaho National Labs, and we just want to share like our experience of what that was like. And it was a lot of fun, and it is with the Department of Homeland Security. So I'll start. So Idaho National Labs. Actually, you want to do this? I think you do this slide together.
sure. All right. So the Idaho National Labs is a laboratory for the Department of Energy under the Department of Homeland Security. They developed this laboratory where they work on all kinds of cool stuff. Like the actual lab is kind of out in the middle of the desert because they've actually caused damage to things there in the past. They actually did a proof of concept that a electric transmission and generation equipment can be destroyed through a cyber attack. So it was pretty cool. The place we went to was just a building in town, so we didn't get to go to the actual laboratory. But we kind of went through that. It's part of the Department of Homeland Security. It's used by the ICS CERT, which is a team that's dedicated to help businesses deal with cyber attacks, particularly industrial controls center. It's their cyber operations center. Also provides a space for training, like the one we went to. The training there's a lot of people from America go to it, but it's international. People come from countries all around the world. The ICS CERT operations and NCKIC, which is see if I can remember this.
It's on the notes, but the notes aren't showing up.
It's the
National Center for Cyber something.
Yeah, I don't remember. Google's your friend, so if you really want to know.
ICS CERT is the Industrial Control Systems Cyber Emergency Readiness Team. So we should say that too.
They offer industrial control system security training, which is what we're here to talk about. They even do cybersecurity stuff for the Super Bowl, which is.
Oh, come on. Yeah, so what's really cool is that they give us a pamphlet of all the things that they do, and they do like a bunch of assessments. They have an operations team. They have any kind of team you can think of, especially for industrial control systems. But it's really cool. The one thing I thought was really cool is that they did cybersecurity for the Super Bowl. So they do the assessment and operations. And
they are available for businesses in the United States. You can reach out to them if you have a problem, and they do investigations for if there's a cyber attack or some kind of incident. They will do investigations. You can either send information to them or they'll send people out to you. And one of the nice things about it is it's not a lot of the word proprietary, but it's they don't spread that information to everybody else. So like if you say, you can use this part of the information to help other people, then they'll do it. But if you say, don't tell anybody else about what you got from here because we don't want our information about our company getting sent out, they'll keep it completely under wraps. They don't like spread that information to everybody else. So your company's information is kept safe.
And another cool thing about this training is that it's entirely free. So if you've ever done a SANS course, SANS is $6,000 on average. This training is literally free. All you gotta do is pay for training, and you have to get accepted. So you have to be a control system owner or educator to get accepted into doing this.
But training's free. You just gotta pay to fly out there, hotel, food, that kind of stuff.
Lots of food. So what to expect at INL 301? We did 5 days of total training, which is a really great 5 days. So we did 3 days in the classroom. They were actually broken into, the first day was general ICS knowledge. The second day was blue team, and the third day was red team. The fourth day was the actual active defense exercise. So this course was recommended to me by a lot of people I work with and a lot of people part of MISEC. I did not know what I was walking into when I did this defense exercise, and I've done a lot of them. This is hands down the best exercise I've ever done. I remember when we left, like, what's the one thing you're disappointed in? And we all told them that we can't do it again. You're only allowed to do it once. So it was that much fun. Have you done it, Kyle?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. It was just an absolute blast. The instructors were great, which I think was probably the most valuable part of that. If you had horrible instructors, they would have really taken away from that experience. But they were a lot of fun. And really, they had a real good passion for ICS.
I can say that this is hands down the best like red-blue team exercise I've ever done. And the disappointing thing is that nothing else anywhere is ever going to compare. Yep. It's the best one that I've ever done, and I highly recommend it to anyone who gets a chance to go.
The fifth day is a debrief, which is basically what happened on the fourth day and what we actually are taking away and taking to our companies when we go back. The thing I really enjoyed about this class was I expected to go there and be just IT people or IS people, and it wasn't. It was really heavily integrated with IT, OT, and management. So I should say OT is operational technologies. Do you guys know what that is? No? Okay. So operational technology is basically the things that, for us, what keeps the lights on. For manufacturing is the automation systems, all sorts of things. So we had people there from Pepsi. There was people there from like Kraft Cheese. Government people were there. But the coolest thing I remember one time was one guy was like, "Yeah, I'm here from management," and the course leader was like, "Okay, so why are you here?" Just to get him to say it. And it was like, I know that I'm a barrier to these guys. And he was there to learn more so he could stop being a barrier, which I thought was really cool. And he was actually a really cool guy to talk to. I sat next to Mike. His name was Mike. Fantastic guy. He was a PLC programmer for the last 30 years. He was saying things to me like I had no idea. But then he would ask me security questions, and he's like, "Oh, I had no idea about that." So it was really cool to actually sit next to full-blown operational technology guys and then work together to achieve goals. I'll start with this one. So the first day, we went over ICS knowledge. It was really broad. So again, the classroom was 40 people from all different backgrounds. And they, of course, had to cover like a lot of the broad knowledge. When we did networking, we covered TCP IP for a little bit. So ICS, Industrial Control System, and it refers to a broad set of control systems. And I think this is kind of the thing. So people interchange these words. ICS is probably the only one you can actually use to explain all of them. The first one would be SCADA, so that's supervisory control and data acquisition. Missed that one. DCS, so DCS would be a distributed control system. PCS is a process control system. EMS is an energy management system. And then this is one I did not think of or did not know. SIS is a safety instrumented system. So your safety systems, your fire systems, some HVAC systems.
Emergency shutoffs.
All that is actually running on the same kind of technology. And that was kind of cool. So there's people there that were actually specifically for safety systems. Does anyone have any questions about any of these? I like interaction. If you guys want to ask me questions in the middle of this, it's good. No? Sweet.
Please ask questions.
Yeah. So again, more with ICS systems. There's a lot of challenges to the ICS space. that a lot of IT and a lot of security people don't know until you actually get into that space. But one of them is that they typically run on embedded systems. So again, they're hard to update, they're hard to maintain. They're usually old, like really old. There's systems out there older than me. So it's a unique challenge to them. But these systems can be PLCs. Most of the time you have programmable logic controllers. And these, I really want to learn more about these. I don't know a whole lot about these right now. And I'm actually on a path to learn a lot more about them at this moment. So maybe this would be definitely for another talk to introduce you more into the SCADA, ICS, PLC kind of things. Remote terminal units, network communications equipment, so firewalls, switches, those are all embedded systems. And they're becoming even more prevalent in those environments. And again, I said they run on embedded systems, and they're usually not, air gaps are kind of hard to exist, but typically they are air gaps. So imagine updating one of those things. One of those environments, everything's done by hand. It's not very fun. Or scanning those environments is done by hand. And then, again, they're old systems. They average at 15 years behind the curve of IT, which, again, all adds to the challenge of, hey, our technology is rapidly progressing, but these systems are staying exactly the same. I have notes on this that are not showing up. So I'm gonna try to remember this. So in an ICS system, what you have your field devices. That could be in a manufacturing environment. That could be like your automation system. For us, stuff at substations, anything like that. So they would actually talk to the field controllers. The controllers orchestrate everything, and then from there, the controllers would actually talk to like configuration database. You need to keep these configurations handy because things are changing all the time. Again, PLCs, you're programming logic into these, and you program them through the HMIs, and then all this stuff is happening, and then they actually give that data to a historian. Do you guys know what a historian is? Okay, all right, yeah, thank you. So like when we say supervisory control and data acquisition for SCADA, so the data acquisition, a lot of that is just gaining the information back so you can trend data and trend things going forward. And then for anyone working on a corporate network, that's also mirrored to a secondary historian. And there's a lot more in my notes that I don't remember. But this, I think, should be a second talk. As soon as I learn more about it, I will give more on this kind of stuff. I'll be working more generation, so it's kind of fun. So here's IT versus OT. I'm going to do this one again.
Totally winging this.
Yeah, we're totally winging this. So when I moved over to our operational technology support team, the team that Luke is currently on, I was on it the year before him. The biggest thing I had to do was flip the way I perceived what it was that I was doing. And I actually had a long talk with the director over there. He basically told me, he's like, you know your CIA triad? He's like, flip it on its head because we don't care about confidentiality. And it took a long time. So Luke and I both have degrees in cyber defense. It's our degree, so we're security people. Walk into an area that's not anything like they taught you in school. It was difficult adjusting to that. So again, confidentiality in IT, it's a really high priority. You don't want data stolen. For us in OT, I mean, you can steal the data. What are you going to do with it? I mean, it's just control data. Manipulating it is one thing, but actually taking the data is not really anything of value. Integrity, we have a really high priority in OT, and availability, I'll say both of them together. If one of our systems go down, you lose power, a hospital goes out, manufacturing gets shut down, anything like that, or if a safety system got compromised, I mean, stuff like that. The confidentiality part of it, again, is lost in the fact that we care about having them available and working. Patch management, again, in IT, it's a high priority because it can actually be doable. For us, we can't in OT. That realm is either the systems are not connected to anything, or they're so old you can't even update them. So technology support, again, in IT is 2 to 5 years. For us, 10 to 20 years. Could be even 30 years. Imagine how many Windows 3 or Windows DOS systems there are out in the landscape today, or even older than that. And there is stuff that still runs out there. After talking to these guys, there is stuff older than us out there.
Because they always tell you that, like, especially at school, you know, like, oh yeah, there's old systems out there that are old, and it's like, yeah, I kind of get it, but it's not until you talk to the people who've been working in the industrial control system for years to tell you, no, that's really, really true, and it's more than you think. So, you know, they kind of tell you that, and you're not sure. It's like, yeah, probably, but then when you actually see, or you talk to people who've seen it, some of the stuff is really, really old.
Like the guy sitting next to me still programs on a Windows 3 machine. Not all the machines, but like there's one that sits out in his environment that he still programs on a Windows 3 machine. And also secure system development. Again, in IT, it's part of the life cycle. Like we all know, we need to be focused on this. In OT, you have a whole bunch of vendors that all want to do their own thing and no standardization. So trying to get people like on the same page is becoming even harder now that they want to separate from each other even more. At the end of the first day, they actually gave us an ICS Exploitation Path, which was really cool. You want to do this one?
You go ahead.
Okay, sweet. I thought this was really cool. So when you say they had a really cool environment to do the exercise in, but the classroom was a separate environment. There's actually pumps on the wall, and there was monitors for each zone. And we actually watched him start from outside the network, corporate network, DMZ, controlled network, and then take control of the pumps. So it was just really, really cool. So the corporate network was compromised via phishing, the most effective way. From there, he did recon. So he found in the DMZ a help desk application through browser history. And then again, more recon, and I say netstat. And I thought one of the cool things is this. Actually, it's in one of the slides. I'm not going to say it. So he did more recon and showed a controlled network that another system was actually connected to. And he ran a buffer overflow on an HMI, took control of the HMI, and then he got control of the pumps and was actually moving the pumps up and down right in front of us. So it was really cool to see that at the end of the day, where we had all this big mixture of people that were actually just watch something like that happen and how easy it was. And then they taught us how to do it on the third day. Blue team day. Yay.
So the last 2 days before the red blue team exercise, they dedicated one day to defensive strategies and one day to red teaming. So on the blue team day, they covered defense in depth was their key strategy. They covered a lot of different topics. Security architecture was one. Intrusion detection systems and firewalls, patch management, how to do incident response, network forensics. And I was a little disappointed because it was actually the same scenario that I presented here in MISEC. So I was looking forward to like, oh, I can't wait to do the network forensics. And then I'm reading the scenario, I'm like, this seems familiar. And I look at the packet trace, I'm like, I did a presentation on this. So that was a little disappointing. But it was still really good training. There was a lot of cool stuff that, different parts of, you've never seen everything, no matter how much education you have or how much experience. And having not been in the industry too long, it's really cool to go through all this stuff about intrusion detection systems and incident response and the good way to build your security architecture. And they covered a lot of different tools that are mostly free. They don't endorse any specific tool or brand or product or even the free ones, but they showed us a number of free ones that were really cool, including some network map ones you can just run. Was it Grass Marlin is the name of it? And you just punch in a packet capture, and it'll map out not only your entire network and what's on there, but which things communicate to what and where their location is on the network. So that one was pretty cool. Bro IDS. I think there was another one of the log parsers, the free one. I can't remember which one it is. Oh, yeah. It's like there's it's either Snort or Squeal.
Oh, it's Snort.
Okay.
What was really cool too is that they had us go through and make firewall rules for each zone. So we had they gave us this is your setup, just in text, and they're like, make your zone firewall rules, depending on that. And it was cool working with again the OT guy next to me. So Luke and I sat next to each other, but we got separated for the people we work with. And so someone who's never done firewalls before to actually watch him that aha moment where he's like, oh, this makes sense, and even the management people when they figured that out. To Luke's credit, the network forensics section was the quickest I've ever done one, so he taught us well. Also, every day there, so we're in Idaho Falls, and they told us from the very beginning, they were like, look, when you're here every day, we're going to give you a potato in a new form. So, because it's Idaho. And I didn't really believe him when he said that, but he made it true when he brought in chocolate milk with potato flakes. And I'm telling you, it's the best chocolate milk I've ever had in my life.
It sounds weird, but it's delicious.
It even showed us the bottle. It said potato flakes on the ingredients. And it was the dairy that was like a mile down the road. It tasted like a chocolate milkshake and almost the same consistency. It was just so good. And they also cater every day, so that was really cool. And at the end of this day was actually where they split us up into teams. So 9 of us went to red team, and the other 39 or 40? 30.
30, I think, yeah.
30, I'm sorry. 40 total, there's 30 people, went to blue team. And they gave us these lanyards, and this is how we kind of separated ourselves for the rest of the time that we were there. So at the end of the day, we had time to spend with these teams. And of course, at night, we all of us went to dinner and discussed stuff even further.
There may or may not have been some social engineering attempts.
Yeah, there was those. As always, as usual. So Red Team Day was everyone's most anticipated day, and I don't blame them. Everyone wants to learn the... Red Team is like the sexy thing to do. I like Red Teaming. It's a lot of fun. Who doesn't? The paperwork is not fun, no. But necessary.
That is Red Teaming.
I know, that is Red Teaming. Yeah. So again, the main focus was on open source tools, especially for the Red Team side, and they actually gave us a customized version of Kali that they had their own kind of not really tools, but modified tools to fit their environment, but also to fit ICS environments. They worked with, specifically, a lot of the exploits were all done with Metasploit. Grass Marlin was a way for us, if we got in, we could actually run Grass Marlin and see what stuff was going on the network. And another thing they really stressed was built-in tools. We'll get to that. Common attack methods were demonstrated. That would be like MS-08067, because how many Windows XP machines still exist in an ICS environment? More than Windows 7. Eternal Blue, WannaCry, stuff like that. I mean, it's rampant in that space. So network discovery, what we did, so passive discovery would be through like interface configs. So he found out about that DMZ the first time because he did like an if config on the machine and found out, oh, hey, this has a second NIC that's connecting to a control network. And that's basically how you found those. ARP tables, another great way to do it. Netstat and route tables, especially if you're looking for other networks. Active discovery, they taught everyone like how to use Nmap, how to use Wireshark, and as well as OpenBOS. And again, I know I say these things to us, like, or at least the people in this room, these are common tools to us. A lot of people in that room, they were not common tools. So it was fun to help them learn these tools at the same time, because some of the more security related people, we went around helping other people specifically on these tools.
And it's kind of interesting, like they were, because it's Department of Homeland Security, so like, we just want to stress that we're not teaching you how to hack. We're teaching you red team stuff so that you can use it for blue team. But the reality was they were teaching us how to hack into ICS, so.
Oh yeah, they totally did. Full disclosure. So the attack methods that they actually demonstrated and then we actually did through the exercises, buffer overflow, which I'm still really fuzzy on. Chris helped me for the 50th time. He's taught me 49 times and I just can't ever figure it out. SQL injections, reverse and bind connections, especially when you're delivering payloads. Most people, again, don't know that kind of stuff. Gaining persistence. And I thought the most interesting one was traversing zones. I've never had to do that before, red teaming. So it was really cool to have an environment where there was very different zones that we did have to actually move from area to area.
And they did a really in-depth thing on SQL injection as well, which was really interesting. Like a good definition of like what it is, how it's done, and showing us a step-by-step of the process. So that part was pretty cool. And
again, I'm trying to sell that you guys should go to this training. Anyone should go to this training. Is that they were really good. This was their 109th training session of this. They had it down, and they were really good at explaining stuff to people who didn't understand things. Again, I mean, I'm a security person. I understand what Buffalo Overflow does. I just don't know how to do it. And I mean, the way that they show it to you, it makes a lot more sense. And it was just really cool. So even though if you think, hey, I know everything, you don't, and you're going to learn something new.
Yeah, and like, again, like, so the network forensics one, this is something I'd already done before I'd done that. I'd taught people how to do that. So that one is something I had that part down pat, but there's going to be something here that you don't know how to do, you probably don't even know anything about it. So if you get the opportunity to go, you're going to learn something, regardless of what your background is.
Oh, password cracking. We did password cracking too. That's always fun. All right, this is like my 4th time using this slide in my sec talk. I love red versus blue. So the 4th day, what we actually really do want to tell you guys about is we got to do the ICS Active Defense Exercise. And it was just a lot of fun. And it wasn't stressful, compared to anything I've done in the past. It was just flat out fun.
It was like, I've done a number of other competitions before where, like, leading up to it, I get super stressed out. He knows for sure. I used to get super stressed out. I've had panic attacks before, and for some reason I was just completely calm for this one. It was just most fun experience I've ever had doing red blue team stuff.
I watched him have a panic attack in Chicago right before a competition. And this one was great. This one was absolutely fantastic. So blue team prep.
So we divided into teams. We elected our leader, which that was a pretty easy process because, like I was saying, someone needs to be team captain, and one person else is like, I kind of think I want to do it, and everyone in the room's like, great, you're the captain.
Her name was Becky, and she was fantastic.
And then we created a plan, started doing some strategies, and preparing for the next day. We didn't have an awful lot of time to prepare, but we did the best we could.
I should also note that Luke was put on the blue team, and I was put on the red team. When you go with two people from the same company, so there's actually a lot of people that were two people from the same company, they will split you up on purpose. And
it's good because you get both sides of the coin.
Yep.
So it's really cool to see, you get both sides of the thing, you get insight into both environments. So
can we tell them the different teams that there was on blue team?
I don't think so.
No.
They request that, if we asked, could we do a presentation on this, and they said sure, but don't tell anyone anything that'll give them an advantage. If they've got, if they're going, we don't want them knowing in advance anything about like network topology or what you have to do or that kind of thing. So can't really tell you that, unfortunately.
We can tell you though that there's multiple teams within blue team.
Yeah.
So there's not just a single 30-person blue team against a 9-person red team. There's actually multiple layers to the blue team that people fit in.
Different jobs or just smaller teams?
Different jobs.
Different jobs, different objectives.
We can totally tell them that. That was told to me before I went.
What was that person supposed to tell you before you went?
Probably not.
Okay, just know that they all perform different functions. So, but in a very healthy way. It was really cool. Red team prep. Red team is the best. So what we did was we went about it a little bit different. We made a really hard point right from the beginning to reveal the goal of the exercise. So both teams actually had an actual goal. There was goals and then there was points. Points were done again through injects, and what they call them? They called them something else.
It's like business tasks or something like that.
Yeah, they're just business tasks. Trophies. They call them trophies, which is injects if you've done CCDC. So you got points by keeping services up and production running or turning in business.
That is one thing I will tell you is on the blue team, you actually had an industrial control network that actually ran industrial systems. So there was like a pump or something related to that in the room that had a function that it was performing. So,
and the pump sitting right next to you, an actual physical pump sitting next to you. There was also an energy system in there. There was a lighting system. I mean, there's a lot of ICS stuff in there that you can play with.
Which I don't think is revealing too much because the whole point of the exercise is industrial control systems. So there was an industrial control system that you were responsible for running.
yeah, exactly.
That's basically.
So we really stuck hard to the goal. So again, we had our injects and we had our points, but there was 5 goals that we had to actually complete, and then they also had their 5 goals that they had to complete. So when we went into the room, we did like an overview of the team's skills, and that's when I realized we had a very diverse skill set. So Lance told me before, he's like, I want to make sure I do a good red team because you need to have people from each different skill set in that team against all the rest of them. So I'm so happy Mike, the OT guy that sat next to me, was on our team. He did a lot of cool things with the control systems, because had we not had Mike and had not been balanced out the red team, we would have been lost when it came to actually doing things with an OT system. We elected a leader, happened to be me, so I captained the red team. We did create a plan. I didn't want it to be super in-depth, but it ended up being that way. We also got to use outside material, which is really unique to any of these kind of competitions. We could have any kind of software we wanted, anything that we had. So I know with one of them, the OT guy actually had the actual software to like program Emerson systems on his laptop. So it was without that kind of stuff that we had. I mean, I just said Emerson, but it was cool. It was a lot of fun.
So the actual day of the exercise, we executed all of our plans as expected. You notice there's some asterisks there, so we'll get to that. Yeah. Chaos descended. It was like our plan just went immediately out the window, but it's still a great time. Go ahead and move the.
Yeah. Sorry.
So we pull our team together. You know, we still got our stuff done. We worked together. We tried to do our objectives as best as possible, and we had tons of fun. It was the most fun I've ever had at a red blue team exercise in my life. So. And
again, with their team pulled together, they're having multiple layers of teams. Like each one of those teams had to pull together, and then they had to pull together as a whole. So they had a very unique challenge that we didn't have.
And we were running around with like chickens with their heads cut off. Like there's one of the biggest problems was communication. Like there's people running back and forth, saying things, asking each other questions. It was ridiculous, but it was still fun.
Without giving it away, we actually watched that. So it was, as Red Team actually watched that. It was really cool. We had the opportunity to see them frantic. So for Red Team Day, all of our plans also went to hell. You have a plan and it just kind of gets obliterated right from the get-go. I feel like the hardest thing I personally had to do was adjust to everyone's personalities. So remember, some of those people we hardly talk to all week, but some of them we talk to a lot. So you go in a room and it's a stressful environment. You have to really adjust to who these people are and what their skill sets are. And some of them were way more open and way more like, I know my role. I'm going to do my role and autonomously. And it was great. Where some of them needed more direction. I find that the best part about doing these exercises is adjusting to people and figuring out how you can get those people to work. We had a much smaller team than Blue Team, so we were more integrated. It was very cool. We came together after lunch. The first part before lunch, we were very much, not frantic, but we just weren't on the same page. But it wasn't until after lunch when we realized, okay, this is actually working good. We're doing things right. Before lunch, we just didn't know what was going on. And another thing that we did, we actually shut off the scoring system. So remember how I said that we focused on the goals? So as a team, we decided we're not going to pay attention to the scoreboard. We just want to make sure we get our 5 goals done. And I'm really glad we did that because when you look at a scoreboard, it stresses you out and it takes you out of that experience. So we were like, let's just make sure we achieve these 5 things, which we did. And that's what we saw success as.
And for example, we did watch the scoreboard like a hawk, and it was a lot more stressful than that.
Yeah, we didn't. So I would recommend doing that in any kind of competition. We really wanted to make it about the learning experience and not about a score. So, and I know that instructors were like, you're the first one who's ever done that. Just shut the scoreboard off. And I'm like, oh, cool. As long as we achieved our 5 goals, and we did. And that's all I can tell you. So, when you guys take when you guys do the training, let me know, because then we can talk about it. It's a lot of fun. Here's my red team. It was a lot of fun. Oh, National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center.
There it is.
NKIC. I was completely wrong. Again, a very diverse set. The guy all the way on the right was our team lead as far as like the instructor style goes, because you had an instructor assigned to you as well to make sure to keep everyone going in the right direction. Blue team had theirs to keep them from shooting themselves in the foot, and we had ours to make sure that we were actually doing. And
they were available to help you, like if you have I know I want to do this thing and I kind of know how to do it, but I've never done it before. They would sometimes kind of step in, like, okay, we'll walk you through the process. You actually do it, but we'll kind of tell you how. So that way you're not completely lost. And that was pretty cool.
It was really cool. Their point of being there was to even the teams out, because they told me afterwards, they're like, yeah, we've seen too many blue teams just go in there and they literally shoot themselves in the foot, and it's no fun. It's no fun for anyone. So, and then ours was there to make sure if we didn't know where we were going, like, okay, we're in a zone, what do we do next? And we sit there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes not knowing what to do next. Like, he would hint us in the right direction without actually giving it to us, or ask us questions so we could figure it out ourselves. So it was cool that we had 2 teams and the instructors were trying to keep everyone on the same page and really make it about the learning experience and not the competition. So red team was cool. So who won? Blue team won
by a couple points. They announced who won, and then they gave us the scores of this points to this points, and it was, I can't remember if it was exactly 5 points, but it was exceptionally close.
That was very
and
cool.
To their credit, and we're not going to give away exactly what this entailed, but they didn't understand fully what our objectives were, so they actually could have trounced us early on, and we would have been crushed if they had known certain things. But I'm glad it worked out the way it did, because then we had a full day of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because if they had crushed us before lunch, then we'd have spent the afternoon probably doing nothing, because it's hopeless. There's no point. We're so far behind. We're never going to get back. So I'm glad it went the way it did, because then we actually had a full day of learning, and it was a great time.
Yeah, halfway through the day as Red Team, we could have actually just obliterated them, and we didn't. I mean, we did, and then reversed it, because we thought it was just like a score thing, and then let them keep going. It was cool that we didn't, because if we did, it wouldn't have been fun the rest of the day. So I got to execute WannaCry, so that was fun. That's not that part though.
So lessons learned, they stressed this all the time, and it's really true. Know your network. If you don't know the stuff on your network, what your systems are, where they are, then you can't properly defend it or take care of it. You have to make sure you know where everything is, who is responsible for it, what it does. And also, communication breaks down very fast in a crisis. It just, out the window. Communication was a terrible problem for us. We were running a vulnerability scanner. We had a vulnerability scanning machine, and we could check our own network. And so I went to the IDS team and said, people doing IDS, a couple guys were working on it, and I went up to them like, hey, I'm going to do this scan on this network from this IP address. So okay. And I start doing it, and 10 minutes later, a guy walks in the room and is like, hey, is somebody scanning, from this IP? It's like, I just told you that 10 minutes ago. Communication was gone, and then
Management model.
You wouldn't believe the number of times somebody asked, like, hey, did we do this? Or did we put in a form for this? Did we do this thing? Like, I don't know. Yeah, communicate. It's super important, and then it's hard enough on day-to-day activity, and then when a crisis occurs, it's just chaos reigns, and so it's really, really important to communicate.
Yeah, and what's really cool about them is they had a change control process. They had all these business functions that they had to actually adhere to. So again, communication was way more meaningful for them to achieve their goals. So for Red Team, know your victim's network. So we had no knowledge of what their network was. So we actually, one of our goals was to map their entire network, and we did. But once we actually knew what the network was, we found it very easy to actually move about, and we knew what our goals were once we knew what everything was. Time is the number one enemy. Again, 5 more minutes and we would have obliterated them. But it wasn't really about the competition. And communication is also vital. Again, the first half of the day, we weren't really communicating with each other. So once we had lunch together and we're like, hey guys, and started giving feedback to each other, and we're like, okay, now we know what we need to do, and we went back and did it really, 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 really well. The instructors actually did tell us, because we went out to the bar afterwards, and he was like, you guys, hands down, was probably one of the best, most even teams that we've ever done. The fact that the score was so close because both teams could operate for the most part as their own, and we didn't actually have that much help from the instructors. So it was cool to hear that we did everything we're supposed to do right. And then common and old attacks are still super prevalent in ICS systems. So, I mean, again, MSO 8067, just run that all day long, I mean, you can do that. You can't do that on a corporate network, but yeah, you can do that in ICS. And again, just like the real world, phishing is very effective. It's definitely one of my lessons learned from that. Travel tips, you can do this one.
So if you get a chance to go to the Idaho National Labs, or even if you just go to Idaho Falls, you must have breakfast at Smitty's Pancake and Steakhouse. If you do not, and I find out that you were there and you didn't go to that restaurant, I will find you and slap you.
We had it every morning. It was so
almost
good.
every morning. It was one of the best places I've ever been. And also, if you have the opportunity, the last day, the debrief, we ended kind of early, so we went with a couple people we'd met throughout the course of the thing who were really cool, and we drove to Jackson, Wyoming, which is kind of a touristy kind of place. It's a really fun trip. The drive is super scenic, so I highly recommend it. So if you get a chance, visit Jackson, Wyoming while you're there, and you must go to breakfast at Smitty's Pancake and Steakhouse. I'm not kidding.
No, we're really not kidding. You have to go there. So it's cool about Jackson. Does anyone know about Jackson, Wyoming? It's actually called Jackson Hole.
I would say Jackson Hole.
It's Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Yeah, so it's just like They like the locals just called it Jackson, so we just kind of we're like,
Well,
we're locals.
it's the official name is Jackson. That's the actual name of it. Yeah, Jackson Hole's a nickname.
Never mind, I wasn't cool. So it's like Aspen, Colorado. You guys know Aspen, right? It's like a ski like resort area. It's literally what this was, surrounded by mountains. So it's Jackson Hole because it's just got a bunch of mountains on the side.
And
it's just so cool.
One of the instructors recommended this place. It was Snake River Brewery, and so we were going to try to find it, and we come across this place. This is Snake River Grill, and we're like, well, maybe that's it. Maybe we got the name wrong. So we go up, and it wasn't open yet, but they had a menu posted outside, and I'm looking at this. It's like, poached quail egg with asparagus and venison, and I'm like, this cannot be the same place. There's no way. So it was actually it was like a mile or two away. So we found the actual place, which is really good.
Really cool leather shops. There's an axe shop called the Candy Shop. So that was really weird. But
Everything's
really
expensive, though.
Oh yeah, super cool place to go though. And this was actually arches. They had arches made out of elk ears, and there's two of them on each side of the center park, and they had lights going through them at night. So when antlers. That's what I said.
You said ears.
Really confused. I'm like,
Sorry.
that's weird.
Oh. Let me start that one over. Elk ears.
Elk antlers. You just said ears again. We practiced this a lot.
Yeah. Antlers. Those are elk antlers. And again, so I mentioned the scenic route or the scenic drive. So this is actually an unfiltered picture I took going through, what was the name of that pass?
I don't remember.
So if you go from Idaho Falls to there, Jackson is actually somewhere inside one of those mountain ranges, or those mountains, I should say. That was just super cool. Like, you just come over the top of one mountain, and then there's this. It was just really, really cool, and the air was really nice.
That was the view I saw every single day when I lived in
Must be nice, Mike. So my wife told me the day I came back that night, I was talking in my sleep, telling her I wanted to move to the mountains. So.
There's a really nice cybersecurity company out there in Colorado now.
Who?
I don't know the name off the top of my head.
It can't be that nice.
Colorado.
Yeah, yeah.
My sister just moved to Colorado every day.
Yeah, it was
It's
so
like
cool.
every parking lot is a screensaver.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were saying. And what was really cool about Idaho Falls, it's called Idaho Falls because there's a river with a bunch of waterfalls. And it's like 20-degree weather there, but to us, since our elevation was so high, it feels like -20. But there was a lot of moisture in the air, so it was foggy the entire time. And I found out there's this thing called freezing fog. I was like, what's freezing fog? The fog actually covers everything it touches in like the sheet of ice. And the trees were the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, I felt like I was in like Lord of the Rings or something. Like, this is so cool.
And for some reason, even after experiencing this for a couple days, we always forgot to get up early, start the car, and scrape off the windshield before we were about to leave. So, like, right when we're about to leave, like, oh crap. So we turn it on, and I'm out there scraping the stupid thing. And whoever designs cars nowadays did not design them with winter in mind. I got really mad about this too, because when it snows, there's all these like divots like around the windshield, and it just fills up with snow, and you got to scoop it out by hand.
And for us Michigan people, they don't salt the roads out there, so that was really interesting. We're in this tiny little Nissan Versa. Man, I slid on the same piece of ice every single day.
Because they don't salt it because it gets so cold that salt's not effective. So they just don't salt. There's ice everywhere, and the locals know how to drive, and because they're doing it all the time. And from Michigan, we know enough about it to not kill ourselves. But
the guy from Los Angeles didn't want to drive. Let's put it that way. So if anyone has any questions for us, that's us. So there's actually a story behind this picture.
Oh,
Luke and I missed our flight back.
We had a flight from Idaho Falls to Salt Lake City, and then from there to Detroit. And we missed the flight to Salt Lake City, but there was another one a couple hours later in the day, so we drove.
Yeah, so that morning, it had snowed a whole bunch, so it didn't actually snow the entire time we were there, and it snowed that night, and then that morning it snowed, so we didn't account for the snow. As I said, we didn't even account for scraping the windshield off. So I checked in on the app, and this is a small, tiny airport. If you didn't know about those airports, like, you hit the cutoff date, they're done. And I checked in on the app. Luke gets in there to like check in. Missed it by 1 minute. It was 8:31, and they didn't let us check in. So TSA was like, "Okay, we'll get you guys through. You still have another half an hour before the plane goes off. Blah blah." So like, we're trying to figure this out. I go through because I'm already checked in, and I just take my bag as a carry-on. I'm ready to put my shoes on, and this woman above me is like, "Come on, Mr. Carroll, grab your shoes and run." I'm like, "Okay." And I turn around to grab Luke. Luke's not there. They spelled his name wrong. Trying to go through TSA did. So we're like, "Oh crap!" And
So to his credit, really great guy. He decided to stay behind.
I had
And,
a 2-week-old baby at the time, and I stayed with Luke.
Yeah, I don't think I've expressed enough gratitude for
Yeah,
that.
thank
So
you.
I just want to.
The TSA
Good
guy
job.
looked at me and was like, I wouldn't do that.
Well, he comes back out, and I'm like, dude, I wouldn't have blamed you if you left.
Yeah. And then I asked him, I was like, what would you have done if I did leave? And he obviously didn't know.
I was just gonna stay there the night and hopefully get a flight tomorrow.
And I told
because I
him-
wasn't gonna drive him that.
I knew what he would have done. I've known Luke a long time. He would have paced the airport until I called him when I landed. That's what he would have done.
I'm a pacer.
Yeah, so we'd already turned in our little Nissan Versa. So I went back to Enterprise and I was like, give me something with 4-wheel drive. So we got a Hyundai Santa Fe and we drove from Idaho Falls to Salt Lake in a snowstorm. But it was so pretty. It was like beyond pretty. And it was scary though at the same time because I was super tired. I think I was staying up to 5 o'clock our time because we were in a different time zone. I was falling asleep. I had a whole bag of Micanites, like the big bags of Micanites, 2 energy drinks in a row. I had a bunch and like music up and windows down to keep me awake driving through the snowstorm.
Yeah, once we got past where it was really bad, you should have me drive. I would have drove.
I should have, but there was like a bunch of cars off the road. A lot of fun. It was very scenic. Definitely worth the drive. So we took this right before we left. It's like I gotta tweet this. Does anyone have any questions? No.
I do have a story that I remembered. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Bree.
Is Windows 3.1 that old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you saying? Yeah, it's okay. I am older than Windows 3.1, but
I'm with you.
you've used
Old
it.
it-
You
old
used
it-
it. That's what it is.
Old in computer terms, I'll put it that way. It's
Yeah.
not the computer age is kind of like dog years. It's not the same as a person's age. So
Canyon. It's probably older than you though. Yeah. So. Yeah, you're born in '95. Yeah, absolutely. I started Windows in '95. My grandma's basement, playing some museum game. It's amazing. What was your story?
somebody mentioned something familiar. Made me think of this. So somebody had mentioned clapping earlier to get something to turn on. So there's a funny story. The day while we're doing prep, the day before the competition, and we're down in this area, and the lights kind of went off in the area. So somebody's like, I wonder if it's a clapper. Somebody just, as a joke, so a guy stands up and claps, and the light turned back on. So like, oh, maybe it is. That's weird. So the next day, there's part of the thing is sometimes like power will go out as a simulated thing. So the lights go out, and we're thinking, oh yeah, no one's by the sensor. So we start standing up and clapping in the middle of the room. We got like 5 people clapping their hands in the middle of the room, trying to get the lights to turn back on. The instructor thought it was one of the funniest things they ever saw.
And it was the instructors the one that actually turned the lights on and off. So it wasn't a clapper.
It was great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, again, it's a very fun experience. I would recommend going with someone you guys know or something like that.
Met a lot of cool people.
Yes.
Made some new friends, and I would actually say I would take this over a con any day. So that's how good it is.
You mentioned you need to show that you own, or was it own or sell?
You have to own. You have to be a control system owner
Or educator.
or educator.
Yeah. So, what evidence can you submit for that? What will they take as proof? Does somebody have to
It's
meet
at their
years?
discretion. It's at their discretion. Sam, you would be accepted.
Okay.
I mean, you work from where you work.
It's kind of company by company.
Yeah.
It's like if your company deals with that stuff, then kind of regardless of your position, as long as you're kind of in IT or management, then they'll take you
Yeah,
generally.
and there was 2 people there from the Canadian government, and they were regulators. So like they don't actually own a control system. If you look at the website, it says you have to be a control system owner, but there's a few people there that taught ICS security, but didn't actually own any systems, and then the regulators as well. So
They're just trying to keep everybody and their brother from applying.
exactly, yeah. But just apply to it. It's a lot of fun.
You could probably make a case too if your company does primarily red teaming kind of stuff. You could probably make a case for it too because you might be doing a penetration test at a system kind of like this. So you could probably make a case for that too.
This is my first training. This is your first training too, right?
Yeah.
They set the bar really high. I'm doing SANS in April, and I'm like, it's not going to meet up to it. But any other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay. Sweet.